welcome to Small Batch Brewing. So today we're going to brew a West Coast style IPA. So for this, the first thing that we're going to have to do is we're going to do our water chemistry. So I've got some calcium chloride, I got some gypsum, and I got some magnesium sulfate for adjusting our water levels, because for me, I find that it gives me the best water chemistry is buying distilled water or RO water from the grocery store and then adding brewing salts into it so I can really tap into what I want to do. So for this, I've already calculated out what I'm looking for this West Coast IPA is you want to have a sulfate ratio to chloride ratio of about 3.2 to 1. So I'm going to measure these out in a second. Then I'll talk about the rest of the recipe. So the rest of the stuff we're going to have going into this is a pretty simple grain bill. I got some of this stuff from Northern Brewer, so I got this rice organic 2-row. I'm going to add 3.3 pounds of that. And then for the some of the caramel malts, I got the organic C20 from them. And then finally, I also have some Carapils to go along with this. So for this, the total grain bill is going to be about 4 pounds. And the reason why I'm doing that is because for me, what I've found is that if I brew a 5-gallon batch of beer, even if it's great, I end up wanting to drink something else pretty quickly. So I want to be able to make a bunch of different beers and then be able to brew another one. So for me, what I'm going to aim for is not a 5-gallon batch. I'm going to aim for about a 1 to 1.5 gallon batch, which is why my grain bill is so small. My plan today is to brew that 1.5 gallon batch, so I'm going to have about 1.25 gallons of our mash water, and then we're going to have about 2.5 gallons of sparge water for that. So, all right, so from here, I'm going to weigh out the calcium chloride. So we're going to weigh out calcium chloride, and for there, we're going to need 2 grams of calcium chloride. Extra right now. So we got about 2 grams there. We're gonna then add that to our water. Next, we're gonna take our calcium chloride, bring that to our 5 gallons of water. Put this aside. Alright, so let's talk about the beer that we're brewing, and most importantly, the grains that we're going to talk about today. So for that, again, we're going to use 2-row. I'm using organic 2-row just because I wanted to try it out. Then we also, as I said before, we got some Carapils for some color and some flavor components, as well as we have some C20 for some caramely flavors to it. Now, again, since we're brewing an IPA, the most important things are the hops. So for West Coast IPA, what we're really looking forward to is we're going to have some Chinook, some Columbus, and some Cascade. Because the flavors we're really trying to get out of this beer are aromatic, but also that kind of piney, resiny, stick to the back of your throat is how I like to describe it. Almost tanniny sometimes, but definitely resin is what you're going to get. Pine is a big flavor you're trying to extract with these things. So now I'm going to weigh out the grain, and then we're going to start our mash process. So based on the temperature of our grain being about 79 degrees, and we want to have our mash temp be about 155, because of the system I'm using, which I'll show you in a second, we do lose temperature because we're not recycling with the heating element. So we want to shoot for the highest mash and then let it kind of cool down, and we'll check it about halfway through to see how the temperature is doing. So for this, we're going to want to heat up our water, or strike water to like 167 is about what we're shooting for. So let's go over to we're going to add our water to this. So we're going to add 1 1/4 gallons of water to our pot, and we're going to heat this up to, as we said, 67 degrees to mash in for our grain. So next we're going to hook up our propane tank. And again, you want to do this in a place that's well ventilated. So I'm doing this in my garage with the garage door open. So then we're going to turn on the propane from the tank and turn this on to the burner. And then we're going to light it. And then we'll adjust so that the flames, about halfway through the mash process, I'm not going to open it back up, just sitting over here in our lovely mash tun. So now what we're going to do is we're going to heat up our strike water, or our sparge water, to then rinse off all the grains that are inside that mash tun. So what we're going to do is we're going to use this as our hot liquor tank. We're going to heat this up, and then I have another one of those coolers that I'm going to transfer it in so that I can have a 3-barrel process. So I can transfer from that big one, wash it over the grains, and catch it in the kettle. So now we're going to add 2.5 gallons of water. And then again, we're going to light this by opening the propane tank. And then now that it's lit, we're just going to wait until it heats up our water to the proper temperature. So we're looking for like 170 to 180. Again, we saw we lost a little bit of heat as we move from the brew kettle to our mash tun, so probably a little bit higher so that we actually get 170 degrees when we get to our tun. So now we've heated up our strike water. It's time to transfer this into our hot liquor tank, which will then run over this. So I'm going to cut the propane on this because we've hit our strike temperature of 170. Now we're going to open up our ball valve at the bottom. Draining into our hot liquor tank. Close that so when we add in our hot mash liquid that we're going to extract out into this pot, we don't actually spill out the bottom. I'll pour the last little bit in there. Okay, so full transparency about this process. For some reason, when I went to go do my mash and rinse with my hot liquor tank, my mash tun got stuck. And I tried taking it apart several times. I don't know, I figured out why. So for whatever reason, the grain was getting stuck underneath this, inside. It was getting stuck inside the bottom of that, and it was clogging the grain bed, and so I wasn't able to actually extract any water. So, and then I just spent a while troubleshooting this, so I have to reheat up everything back up. So my plan now is to heat this all up to strike temperature, so 170 degrees. It's in the brew kettle, so I'll extract it out into the kettle and wash it over a couple times out of the brew kettle and collect it in one of these, clean out the brew kettle, and then I will collect everything in here, transfer it back to the brew kettle, continue the boil. Alright, we're going to try this again. So I'm going to start by killing the propane because we've reached 170 degrees. And then I'm going to start draining out of my brew kettle into what was my mash tun and collect the hot liquor out of this. what I'm going to do is recycle this. So I'm going to transfer this back over and pour it over and extract it. I'll get our original gravity or official gravity right now after we blow drains out. It smells really good. Stopped this from flowing because our grain bed is now at the same level as this. So now we're going to put this above it and we're going to sparge over this and collect all the sugars again and collect it again in our other kettle. And then that way we're going to take whatever is in here and use that as our wort to start boiling. Alright, so we still had another issue with the mash getting stuck. So got it eventually, got it back in the brew kettle, draining it again, and at this point, I'm gonna take whatever wort I get. It just really was that in here, the grain was clogging the hole, and so I just couldn't let any of the liquid out. I ended up using the probe of my thermometer to poke it free, but we're almost ready to boil. Alright, so our wort's looking like that. It's definitely on the hazier side. Not getting good filtration will do that to us. And our grain bed kind of looks like this. Not perfect, but what else are we going to do at this point? We've been stuck and we've been messing around with this for a little while. The plan now is to clean out the brew kettle and then take this and put that in the brew kettle and start the boil. So I'm going to clean it out and then we're going to start the boil. So we're going to add our first hops. So we're adding Cascade into this. We're going to add about half an ounce of this. So we're about 30 minutes into the boil now. So it's time to add the next batch of hops. So in this case, we're going to add another half an ounce of Columbus. And we're going to add this in. Now that we've added the Columbus, we want to give it a good stir. So we're going to use our nice big brew spoon, stir it in there, heat it back to evenly mix it around. And then we're going to use this to prop it open to kind of close and retain some heat, but still allowing the gases to escape as we're brewing. So in about 20 minutes, we're going to add our next and final batch of hops while it's boiling. And then we're going to add in our half an ounce of the whirlpool. So we're on the last addition of hops, so we're going to add that. We're also going to add a tablet of Warflock to it, or quarter tablet of Warflock. And we're going to dunk in our wort chiller to cool it down for the last 10 minutes. So it sanitizes it already in a sanitizer bucket. We're just being extra careful. Alright, so we're going to add the Chinook hops. Half an ounce of this. We're going to add in our Warflock tablet. And finally, we're going to add in our wort chiller. We're going to let that heat up for another, or boil for another 10 minutes, and then we're going to start cooling it down to 180 degrees through the whirlpool. So we're done boiling, so I'm going to kill the heat on the propane. Turn it off here, then disconnect. And then we're going to carry this over to my hose so I can start cooling down the wort. Alright, so we've checked the temperature on this. We're down to 77 degrees. So we're going to kill our hose and then start racking this over. Alright, so we pitched our yeast, we got our airlock ready to go. Get this good shake to aerate it. Put our airlock on top. basement, and we'll check on it in a few days and see how it's doing.
Beer is now fermenting in the primary fermenter. This has a gravity was a little lower than we expected, but thanks for tuning in. Be subscribed if you're new and smash that like button, and we'll see you in the next video.